Hello, I'm Dr. Kenneth Goldberg, and I'm the author of The Homework Trap: How to Save the Sanity of Parents, Students, and Teachers. For today's comment, I'd like to take off on an article that I read in Tuesday's education blog in the Washington Post. The article was by Mark Phillips, and he was comparing vocational education in the United States and Finland. And he pointed out how vocational education takes a back seat to academic education in our country. Whereas in Finland, a country which is lauded for its excellent education system, offers vocational education as a desirable and valued option side by side with academic education. He notes that about 45% of all high school students choose vocational education, including those who could readily have handled an academic course of studies. And he points out that the system values this type of education and uses the words, I'll quote them, 45% of the students choose a technical track, not an academic track, after completing their basic education. Well, I'd like to go back to the issue of the basic education and consider vocational education not just at the high school level, but at the elementary school level. I'll start out by telling some personal stories. I lived two doors down from a boy when I was a child who was a very hands-on type of child. And like many American kids, I felt superior to him because I was more academically inclined. So I would sit there and read a book or do a puzzle or even play a made-up baseball game and be calculating the statistics of my made-up players while he was out front cleaning his bike, taking it apart, cleaning it, putting it back together. As we got into junior high school, he started to work on motorbikes. And by high school, you could see he was doing some serious work on his car. Possibly he knew how to repair a transmission or fix or replace an engine, I'm not sure. But he certainly seemed to be very handy. And we traveled in different circles, and I certainly lost contact with him as we moved into the upper grades. But my interests were more academic. There were times that I toyed with more hands-on sort of things. When I was a young man, I bought some old cars, and I would like to tinker with them and try to repair them. And I wasn't very good at that. When I lived in New York, there was a place where you could rent a lift and actually buy the parts and repair your own cars. And frankly, if I looked at the time it took me to fix my car, the amount of technical advice I needed from the person behind the counter, and the overall cost, it was much cheaper for me to take the car to a mechanic, which eventually, as an older person, that's just what I do. And there was a time when my children asked me if they could have a tree house. We had a nice tree for that, and I ended up putting hours upon hours into eventually giving them a safe tree platform. And they used to laugh at me because they wanted a tree house and they had a platform, and they used the platform. But the whole task of building this house was just beyond me. Well, let's go back to my neighbor when we were in elementary school, and he think about it. What would have happened to me if I had taken my bike apart and cleaned it and put it back together? There's a chance I wouldn't have had a bike anymore. And what would have happened to me if I was sent home with homework assignments, which involved taking my bike apart, cleaning them, and putting them back together? If I got them done, they would have taken me hours. They would have taken me hours, and they would have interfered with other things that I might have done. And it wasn't until years later that I thought back to how homework assignments are actually doing that to boys and girls, like the one who lived a couple doors down from me. That for me to build a tree house, I put an enormous amount of effort in and ended up with a tree platform. Put in more time than it would take many parents to do. And for me to repair my car, it was a little bit of a hobby when I was younger, but it was a time-consuming hobby, and certainly one that for me to even come close to what someone who was more handy and mechanically inclined could do took me long amounts of time. Well, this is exactly what we do with homework. We take kids that are not academically inclined, and we say, because you're not academically inclined, you're going to have to now do the same work as the child who's academically inclined, and you have to do it until it's done. And that means you're going to have to put extra time into it to come up with what's a mediocre accomplishment, and that is going to cut into your time to do what is a key component of learning as a child, which is learning through play. Learning through play, my imaginary baseball teams with their statistical, with their statistics that I calculated, or the book that I read, or the puzzle that I did, or the bike that he took apart, or the project that he built, or whatever the thing is. That basically, if you give a child a time-consuming task in an area that they're not good at, you're going to interfere with their spontaneous learning when they're younger. So I agree with Mark Phillips about the importance of having and valuing good vocational education as a choice for young people when they're in high school. But I also think that when we talk about completing their basic education, that it's important to leave the bulk of that basic education in the classroom so that when the child goes home, the child has a broader range of things that child can do to create a spontaneous personal education, which might be the precursor to later vocational success. Thank you.